What's up, Yinzers, Yinzettes? Welcome back to yet another edition of PucksNet. We'll give you the latest downtown breakdowns and everything from this past week in Penguins hockey. I'm joined by my co-host Hunter Hodes, who did celebrate a birthday this past week. So happy birthday, Hunter! How was your
Thank
birthday?
Saturday, 28 now. So, what was the line that Mike Sullivan had? One step closer to the eternal dirt nap when he had a year ago or something like that. Had to make a little, joke, but always nice to celebrate that. Got to go to a nice dinner on Friday. Had a friendsgiving with some friends on Saturday. That was fun. I know the Penguins didn't win on Friday, but that's okay. Still fun. They won on Sunday. All's good. 2 more years till I'm 30, Kelsey. Then it starts getting a little scary.
I wouldn't say it's scary. I mean, I'm there. It's not like your life's ending at
Am
30.
I an unk yet? Am I almost an unk?
No, no, no. I think that's reserved for like 40 plus. And I'm
Okay.
sure I'll be saying it's like 50 plus when I'm 40 in 10 years. So we'll revisit that conversation at a later date. Um, but anyway, unks aside and age aside, now that you all know how old we both are, let's get to some talking about the Penguins because quite a lot's happened the past week. Obviously, the Penguins played the Global Series in Stockholm, Sweden. Took home 3 of 4 points. Obviously, would have liked to see them get 4 of 4 from against the Nashville Predators. But I think you'll take 3 out of 4 on this road trip, especially given the way the Penguins played in that first game on Friday. Probably one of their worst efforts of the season. They were just dog walked the entire game, especially the last 40 minutes. And then they came back with a really nice bounce back effort on Sunday in a 4-0 win. Sergei Murashov earns his first NHL win, first shutout, and he also became the fastest Penguins goaltender to record a shutout in only his second game. So, Hunter, just what did you think about this slate of games in Stockholm? Are you satisfied with the 3 of 4? And kind of how big do you think that win was on Sunday to really get things back on track for this team?
Yeah, so I think, when you look in totality, 3 out of 4 points, I would say is a success, even though they got completely dog walked on Friday. That was a really bad performance. I had a tweet lined up, Kelsey. It's good to get some of those survive in advance games out of the way where you win that game, throw it in the trash because they were not good for basically 59 of those minutes before the Predators tied it, and then they won it in overtime. I did not care for that effort. I thought they were outskated. They were badly outchanced. Artur Shilovs was the only reason why they were literally about to win that game before Nashville tied it. I didn't like the playoff, the faceoff, but they were able to lick their wounds a little bit, come out on Sunday and really dominate the Predators, especially in the first period. You get 3 pretty quick goals. You hold the Predators to that like 2 shots in that entire period. Did their level dip for the final 40 minutes? Yes. But Nashville never really started fully pushing. There were spurts where they had some offensive zone time, but I thought the Penguins did a really nice job of limiting the high danger areas and not allowing Sergei Murashov to see a lot of high danger chances. It was kind of a little bit of a low event final 40 minutes where Penguins, they had some good chances. UC Saros was pretty good, but they didn't really give Nashville a lot of the big quality chances, which eased Murashov a bit. So just a really professional performance, I thought, on Sunday, and one that they badly needed because they had been on a 3-game losing streak, and it goes even well beyond that with, there was a couple wins sprinkled in there, Kelsey, but they had been on a little bit of a slide and losing games that they shouldn't, blowing leads that they shouldn't. So it was really big to get that win. And now, you have several days off before you're home for Friday and Saturday against 2 teams that are, in the playoff race, but I still don't think are that good. So it was really big to, get some of that confidence back and just play for pride. Like that's what I wanted to see. You got to, at some point, show some pride, show some fight. I didn't see any of that on Friday. They showed both of those and they were able to win that game. And now you can hopefully ride some of that momentum into this weekend against 2 Western Conference teams.
Absolutely. And they had lost 5 of 6 games heading into Sunday. So that was a really big win for them. They were kind of starting to fall off a little bit. Luckily, most of the Eastern Conference has been pretty meh this season. They never fell out of a playoff spot or anything. But it was nice to, bank those 2 points on Sunday, come home with 3 of 4. And I do want to stop and talk about Artie Shelovs for a second because Murashov was also great, obviously great on Sunday. We could go on and on about how this kid is, making things look good for the future for the Penguins. But something that isn't really being talked about much, Artie Shelovs is actually considered a rookie this season. And, there have been a couple polls coming out. He's actually making some polls in some early season rookie of the year chatter. And obviously, right now, it's hard to deny that that's going to be Matthew Schaefer. He's just doing unbelievable things for the New York Islanders at 18, even arguably making a case for Team Canada. But let's talk about Artie Shelovs for a second because, this is a guy, the Penguins acquired him over the summer from the Vancouver Canucks for a 4th-round pick. Kind of a really low-risk, high-ceiling move for them. That he was kind of forced out of Vancouver just because of their situation and the goaltending tandem that they already had in Kevin Lankinen and Thatcher Demko. So comes to the Penguins, and so far he's got a .917 save percentage. He's got 4 wins, a shutout, 244 goals against average. Just perfectly solid numbers in the early going for the Penguins this season. So what did you think of his performance Friday, and what do you think of the early returns on Shelovs here?
I mean, he stood on his head that entire game. Again, it was the only reason why they had a remote chance of winning it at the end there before Nashville won it in overtime. I love his agility in the crease. He's also super calm in net too. It reminds me a little bit of Murashov. We'll get to him a little bit later, but he's super athletic, and I do think that helps him. I love everything about his game, Kelsey, except shootouts. But hey, he did make a save on a breakaway on Friday. So baby steps. Feels like maybe he got a little bit of confidence after they finally practiced a shootout during practice, which, hey, they should be practicing a shootout once a week going forward in practice. One of those practices, spend 10 minutes at the end, practice shootouts, because you've already lost 3 games in a shootout this year. The other one obviously was against Nashville in overtime, but still. So maybe that gave him a little bit of confidence, but still, he's so positionally sound in net this year. And you mentioned the save percentage. He's also 9th in the league in goals saved above expected with 8.4, 2.44 goals against average. He's only behind, 8 other goalies, Sorokin, Shesterkin, Jeremy Swayman, Connor Hellebuck, Logan Thompson. Certainly good company.
Pretty good company. Yeah.
The best goaltenders on the planet. So again, I don't know how long this will last, but the early returns have especially been great for someone who his regular season sample size before this was okay, wasn't nearly this good. So I'm really happy with the level that he is at, for a position that we both thought going into the year was going to be a weakness. It's been a pretty big strength so far.
Absolutely. And the Penguins are 3rd in team goaltending right now in the league. So that should tell you something about the work that Artie Shelovs, Sergei Murashov, and Tristan Jarry have been doing. And one last note, we'll get to Jarry in a second too, but one last note about Shelovs too. I mean, let's not forget, this guy is already in the Olympics for Team Latvia. He is the goaltender. He's skated in 2 world championships for them. Outstanding international numbers for Team Latvia. And, during the World Championship and some of these, bigger tournaments, he's playing against some pretty good teams. They face Sweden. He talked to me about this the other day. And I will have a piece on this. I'm not going to delve too much into this right now. I'm actually going to release a piece on this today. But, he was facing some pretty good competition out there in his 2021-2022 World Championship. So that would have been the 2022 World Championship. .952 save percentage. And then in 2023 World Championship, those are .921 save percentage. Didn't participate last season, but just outstanding internationally. He seems to, play his best hockey when the stage is the biggest. And like you said, cool, confident, collected, just like Murashov under pressure. We'll see if this could continue because, as of note, it is Tuesday. Penguins return to practice. It was an optional practice. But before practice, Tristan Jarry did skate. He also took some reps playing during practice in a regular jersey. Hunter was there. I was not. He can tell you a little bit more about practice. But, it's no secret that the Penguins, have had 3 pretty good goaltenders up to this point. And if Jarry's pretty close to returning, could get pretty interesting to see who kind of, sticks and what they decide to do here at the goaltending position.
I still think they're probably going to send Murashov back to Wilkes-Barre, though you do have Yoel Blomqvist back now, Kelsey,
Yeah.
and he got the start over the weekend for Wilkes-Barre. Philip Larson was sent back. So that logjam is going to start creeping up a little bit again here. You're going to have to figure out reps for these guys. I think Taylor Gautier is getting closer to returning as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be fascinating to see how they go about these reps. But, I wrote a piece about this for the Hockey News the other day about Murashov, and the early returns for him have also been good. He gets the shutout against Nashville. Again, wasn't tested that much, but he really showed his movement in the crease well, going from side to side, stopping a couple of really strong one-timers that I really liked. And he's also very cool, very calm in net. Everything comes so easy to him. And you can see why so many people, including us on the show, are really excited about him for his future, because nothing really seems to phase him. And yeah, people, I know it's only 2 starts. He's probably not going to be up here for the entire season, but he's coming. The time is going to be very soon when I think he is on this team full time. And through these 2 starts, again, it's only 2, he has looked like he is ready for some NHL action. It's just, they really don't have a choice right now. Tristan Jarry is still on this team. He's also been mostly playing well this year, though. Let's see how long that lasts still. Archer Shilovs has been one of the best goaltenders in the league so far. I still can't believe that's a real thing, but it is when you look at the numbers and all that. So I think they're going to continue to do that 1A, 1B tandem and still let Murashov cook a bit more in Wilkes-Barre, get him those starters reps. Maybe it's a 1A, 1B with, or maybe in a 1A, 1B, 1C with Larson and Blomqvist. They're going to have to figure out something down there. But, I still think that's the most prudent move unless Murashov, goes out there and, dominates. I still think he's going to get one more start this weekend. Jarry was taking some reps today in practice. Looked fine, but I think they're still going to play a bit cautious with him so he doesn't re-injure himself. So if I had to guess, and this is a strict guess, I think Jarry comes back next week.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, and we'll see how he progresses, over these next couple of practices. But it is going to be an interesting situation. Yoel Blomqvist also got the win this weekend in his season debut. We'll get to Rucker McGroarty in a little bit too, but he also made his season debut on Saturday for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. Scored a goal. It was a beauty of a goal too. But let's talk about some of these injured players that skated this morning. Noel Acciari, Justin Brazeau, Ricardo Rakell all skated before practice. And then you had Tristan Jarry, and who was the other one?
Jack St. Ivany was also at practice.
Jack St. Ivany, yes, Jack St. Ivany.
He's been out since the end of the preseason. Yeah. I assume once he is back healthy, they're going to send him down to Wilkes-Barre. There's just not enough room up here.
Yeah, absolutely. So all those guys skated. Good sign for the Penguins because they're a depleted team right now. But unfortunately, they did add a name to their injured list Tuesday. Ville Koivunen, week to week with a lower body injury. And this is really unfortunate for Koivunen, not really getting off to the start in terms of production that I'm sure he wanted to, that I'm sure the Penguins wanted to see, especially after registering 7 points in 8 games in that short stint at the end of last season. But, you kind of saw him starting to build some momentum, in these last handful of games. Wasn't getting on the score sheet, was a little bit snake bitten. So just really unfortunate timing for Ville Koivunen, especially, given his opportunity with all these injuries right now. But in his place, in the corresponding move, they did call up Sam Poland from the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. And I'm sure it's a name you're familiar with as of now. He's had a couple NHL stints up to this point. He's had a really good season so far in Wilkes-Barre. 7 goals, 15 points, 16 games. This guy's been driving the bus on offense. Down in Wilkes-Barre, definitely an earned opportunity. I know some people were clamoring for maybe a couple other players, and we'll get to that in a second when we talk about another roster move that was made today. But what did you think about the recall for Sam Poland, and what do you kind of want to see from him in this NHL stint here?
I think this is really kind of a make it or prove it situation now. This is another staff that he'll get to kind of make his mark with. And I know the NHL sample is not that big, but I just haven't really noticed him in any of the games that he's played in. So, I like the start that he's off to. It's been great that 15 points also leads the team, Kelsey. So he's been really driving the offense. He's also been good in his own zone as well. So, I know everyone wanted Tristan Brose and all that, and he's going to be coming up later on this season. That same with Rucker McGroarty, I think. But Sam Poulin earned this opportunity, and now he gets to try and go out there and impress a new coaching staff. I think he's going to have a bottom six role to start, and it's now up to him. Like, he's been given opportunity after opportunity, hasn't worked out. Now he's getting another. I really think it's put up or shut up time with him because, yeah, it's great. You can be a point per game player in the AHL. Are you able to take that next step, though? And we haven't seen it yet. So this will be his opportunity.
Yeah, and you got to wonder too if he's going to see some top six minutes in this stint. Only because Connor Dewar played on Sidney Crosby's left. Ben Kindle was moved back down to third line center for that game Sunday. We didn't mention that. It's amazing how much deeper of a team this is when Ben Kindle is at that third line center position. I think we saw the Penguins able to roll four lines again. You kind of wonder where Sam Poland's going to fit into this lineup too, because Penguins are kind of getting a little experimental with that left side on the forward unit because of all the injuries. And we saw, in the last game as well, Kevin Hayes was moved up to Evgeny Malkin's line on his left. They kind of got that size element back, and it worked for them in Sunday's game, kind of as almost a replacement for Justin Brazeau in the meantime. But that left side next to Crosby without Kindle there is kind of wide open. Basically, probably until Raquel returns, or unless they decide to call up somebody else. And let's get to that too, because there was another roster move made today. Philip Tomasino was waived by the Penguins. If he does not clear, or if he clears within the next 24 hours, he's not claimed. He doesn't have to be optioned to Wilkes-Barre right away, but we can assume that that's probably what's going to happen. And what this means is that there will probably be, another roster spot open for the Penguins as of tomorrow. So this is a situation where we might see one of those other guys recalled, whether it's Bros, somebody else of the ilk. But I do kind of want to comment just here real quick, too. I know a lot of people are clamoring for Rucker McGroarty to come back to Pittsburgh. Completely understandable, especially after the sample we saw at the end of last season before an injury ended his season prematurely. 3 points, 5 games, looked really good next to Sid. But let's pump the brakes a little bit, guys. Just remember that McGroarty did not have a training camp. He missed all of training camp with an upper body injury. This was his first game back on Saturday, and mind you, he didn't look out of place. In fact, he looked pretty outstanding for a guy who didn't have a training camp and just walked right in, played a game, and casually scored a beautiful goal. Also took a puck to the face, by the way, in the first period. So an adventure of a game for Rucker McGroarty. But I would pump the brakes a little bit just because Kyle Dubas did mention with McGroarty's recovery timeline, this is going to be something that the Penguins are going to take their time with. He basically said he's too important for their future, and they just want to make sure that they're doing right by him developmentally, and bring him back from this injury. So, personally, I wouldn't expect to see McGroarty be the one get the call. But we'll see what kind of roster moves they make in the coming days, depending on what happens with Tomasino here.
Yeah, and I wasn't surprised that Tomasino got waived. It looked like on Sunday when he was in the lineup, he knew he was kind of playing for his job, but I think by then it was kind of too little too late, Kelsey. He's only played in 9 games. He's been in and out of the lineup as a healthy scratch, just hasn't been consistent. And that's been the biggest knock on him since he's been acquired by the Penguins from the Predators was he would have some stretches where be like, okay, he's maybe starting to put it together. Part of that included him playing on Evgeny Malkin's wing. And then he'd go through stretches where it's like, just looks like a fourth liner. And this year he's played mostly like a fourth liner, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm not surprised that they waived him. I will be curious to see, considering the amount of injuries around the league, if a team decides to claim him or not. Still only 24 years old. You saw the success that he had last season. So that player is in there somewhere, obviously hasn't made its way out in Pittsburgh this year, but does another team decide to take a chance on him? I'm going to be curious to see if someone claims him. If not, I think either way, the Penguins will recall someone. I brought up Tristan Bros. I kind of said they may be waiting to save him for later. Maybe they do it here. Who knows? Again, I personally think they might be saving him for a bit later, but I guess it wouldn't shock me if they decided to recall him now. And I agree with you on McGroarty. It's probably too early. Dubas, I think, said during the GM show, they're going to give him a runway here. They're going to give him a good amount of games. I think it's more than a conditioning stint. It's more to just get him some game action. So whether that's, 10 to 12 games, something like that. Say he's a point per game around that time. Okay, maybe you can call him up to the team and he can start getting minutes even when everyone's healthy. But it's still a little too soon. He's just returning from injury. Had that really nice goal over the weekend, by the way. That was beautiful. So I don't think he's going to get recalled. I still would like them to send back Joona Koppanen. I just don't really know what they see in him in a bottom six role. Just a lot of meh for me, honestly. If you want to send him back and call up, two other players, honestly, Kelsey, I think I'd be okay with that. Maybe if they wanted to recall Bros or Boko Imama or something like that, you can call up both of those guys again. Or honestly, Kelsey, I wouldn't be surprised if the call up tomorrow is Boko Imama. He's he's someone that is very much liked in that room. So I really could see him being called up. But there's plenty of options down there with the way that team is rolling right now. It just really sucks for Koivunen. I agree, because he's been really snake bitten this year. He's had, it looks like sure goals. The puck has just not gone in the back of the net. I thought he was playing a lot better these last few games. So hope that he's able to come back soon and he can start getting back to producing like he was at the end of last season. So those are my main thoughts on all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Boko Mama. I wouldn't be surprised by that either, because another thing to note too, McGroarty was placed right on Tristan Brose's left in Wilkes-Barre. They might want to give those two guys some runway just to work together for a little bit. So don't panic if you don't see some of these guys right away. And also to remember, they have some of these guys, injured guys, skating right now. Those timelines were, kind of specific, but also at the same time not very specific. It was kind of just like, oh, at least 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks, at least 4 weeks. So we're kind of approaching, that 3-week territory for a couple of them. Raquel is probably a little bit further out because he does have more of a hard recovery timeline. But anyway, we'll see how this goes for them. We'll see what moves they decide to make in the coming days. Again, I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if it is a mama. Just to give Bros and McGroarty some runway to work together. And also the other thing about McGroarty to consider here too is, unfortunately, because he missed that time and because he missed training camp, because he missed the beginning of the season, it's kind of given some other guys some traction, guys like Bros, guys like Avery Hayes, who is day-to-day in Wilkes-Barre right now. But they've kind of gained some traction and picked up some traction and are in a position where they're probably close to earning those NHL recalls. So not to say they've jumped ahead of him all of a sudden developmentally. I do think developmentally McGroarty's ahead of those guys. But in some sense, he's kind of going to earn his way back. So I wouldn't assume that he's just going to be recalled to the NHL as soon as, the Penguins need him. So in some aspects, you can't just hand that to him when other guys are pushing too. So we'll see how much he pushes. You hope that he forces their hand at some point soon here. And if he does the kind of things that he was doing in Saturday's game, I don't think it'll be too long. But the jury's still out on that. We will see what move the Penguins decide to make, pending whatever happens with Philip Tomasino here. And just pending what happens with all their injured guys as well. So last thing I do want to talk about from this past week, just as of note, I did kind of put this out on Twitter. I know Hunter kind of retweeted it this morning. But just of note, Sunday did mark Harrison Brunick's 5th consecutive NHL healthy scratch, which now makes him eligible for an AHL conditioning stint. And just to clarify too, this conditioning stint is a maximum of 5 games. But basically it's whether the 5 games comes first or whether the 14 days comes first. Obviously no decisions been made on Brunick as of this point. Hunter mentioned this as well, on Twitter and just in talking that Brunick was at practice this morning, still in Pittsburgh. So, we'll see what happens. But, if you're kind of reading between the lines, connecting the dots at this point, that's probably what makes the most sense for both of them. Because, if he's sent back on that conditioning stint later this week, stays the 14 days, stays the 5 games, that'll bring him, about to early December. And then, World Juniors camp is in mid-December. Probably get loaned to Team Canada, but we'll see what happens there. That'll be an interesting situation to follow. Keep your eyes open. And then finally, Penguins defensive prospect Peyton Kettles did have a shoulder injury, and he is actually going to Pittsburgh on Friday to get surgery on the shoulder. He's out indefinitely. Really unfortunate for Kettles. He was actually just traded a couple weeks ago. And, this is just the injuries trickling down through the organization, Hunter. It's really unfortunate, especially for a guy that was just drafted in the second round by the Penguins. And, the early returns this season from him were pretty good. So really unfortunate. But let's kind of move on because I do want to mention something that's kind of, really propelling the Penguins this season, and that's their special teams. I know we've talked about this kind of in passing, in previous episodes, but as of after these 2 games in Sweden, the Penguins power play is ranked number 1 in the league. That was the case before they were in Sweden. But their penalty kill is now top 4. So we're talking about the Penguins having the best special teams in the National Hockey League. They're the only team in the National Hockey League with both units in the top 5. Just how big have special teams been for the Penguins, and how good of a job have Todd Nelson and Mike Stothers done with these units this season?
Amazing. And you can throw Dan Muse in there, especially because he's been lauded as a PK mastermind, especially during his days as an assistant coach, and you're really seeing those dividends pay off. The PK looks a lot more aggressive this year compared to where it was under Mike Vellucci. I always felt like it was too passive these last couple of years, where they would give up zone entries, they would sit back too much. This year, they're challenging the players coming into the offensive zone. They also have one player always pushing up really high, being pretty aggressive. And the other 3, they, box out the high danger areas, but they're being aggressive and not just letting, the other power plays come to them. Like, I think that's been a major difference so far this year. They're also winning a lot of loose puck battles along the boards. They're doing a great job winning the battles down low. They're making a lot of opposing power plays look really clunky so far. So I can't say enough about the PK. The power play, and I wrote about this recently for the Hockey News, movement, and more movement. Todd Nelson has really emphasized that this season, and that's saying something because last season I thought the movement was pretty solid when David Quinn was running the show. The Penguins had the sixth best power play in the league. And this year, Todd Nelson has upped that unit, by 100 levels. It feels like, this year's unit is on steroids compared to last year. And, Erik Karlsson's been great as a power play quarterback, which you can't really say as much during his career. Like, he struggled in that department at times, but this year I think he's been really good. Evgeny Malkin's been moving around. Sidney Crosby's been moving around quite a bit. Sometimes he sets up in the Draisaitl spot. Sometimes he's down low. Sometimes he's front of the net. You have the bumper spot as well. So again, it's everyone just working as a cohesive unit, zipping the puck around, getting to the high danger areas, keeping the opposing penalty killers honest. They can't even set up. That's the thing. A lot of these penalty kills don't even know how to set up because the Penguins, once they gain the zone, they're just zipping the puck around, and then by the time they know it, puck's in the back of the net. So again, I just can't say enough about how both these units are on fire right now.
Yeah, that Draisaitl spot is looking pretty good on Sidney Crosby this season. He's scored a couple from there. He has 6 power play goals on the season. And for a while there, he was tied with Leon Draisaitl in power play goals. Draisaitl since passed him a little bit, but it's pretty remarkable. And you mentioned the movement, you don't see anybody standing still, nobody's stagnant. There's a lot of cycle, there's just a lot of movement from everyone on the unit. And, even into that bumper position, you don't really see one guy even I think with the old units, you'd kind of see one guy assigned to that position. They would kind of just rotate and rove, but you don't always see that. You kind of see guys switch it in and out of that position. We've seen Brian Rust there a couple times. We've seen Ben Kindle there a couple times. Sometimes you use a low bumper, sometimes you use a high bumper. There's just a lot of chaos, but it's controlled chaos. And it makes it really difficult for opposing teams to do anything about it because there's constant puck movement, there's constant cycling, guys are moving around, guys are switching up. It's really remarkable to witness. And you can't say enough about the work that Sidney Crosby's done on the power play this season, because in the past, we've seen him as, the pass first guy always looking for a pass. He's kind of their trigger man this season over in that Draisaitl spot, and it's paying off for him because he's scored a couple of nice ones from there. And then in terms of the penalty kill, I did specifically want to point out Blake Lizotte because I don't think he's getting enough love for his play this season.
Yep, and I wrote
You
about that.
know,
I wrote about that this week. He's been a hound. Like
yeah.
and that Sunday game in Nashville, Kelsey, I think he was the best player on the ice, but I'll let you go ahead. I loved writing about him. He made life a living hell for them on Sunday.
He did. And you know what? I mean, he's an excellent penalty killer too. He gets in shooting lanes like nobody else. You see him go out for a puck battle, he wins almost every time. I mean, this is probably like 80 to 85% of the puck battles that Blake Lizotte is involved in, especially along the wall. He comes away with the puck, or he comes away with the positioning, or he, squirts the puck to a teammate to let them get it out of the zone. It's his work on the PK in particular is phenomenal, but we've also seen him just 5-on-5 be a driver. He brings a lot of energy to that fourth line, despite a rotating cast of line mates. Him and Connor Dewar had chemistry for a lot of the season. Obviously, Dewar's playing on Sidney Crosby's left right now. We don't know if that's going to stick or not, but he's kind of had a rotating cast of characters down there. And all the while has kept his play really, really consistent for the Penguins. He's been a little bit of an empty net merchant this year in terms of his goals. He's got a couple of them, but hey, that's okay. He's the guy you want on the ice in those situations. He wins, a decent amount of faceoffs. He grinds out there. Like I said, blocks a lot of shots, gets in shooting lanes, breaks up a lot of plays. Honestly, just the perfect fourth line center, I think, especially for a team that wants to contend. He's just as scrappy as they come, as feisty as they come, energetic as they come, and you're not going to see a guy give more effort in a hockey game, I don't think.
100%. He plays his ass off every single shift, part of my language on that. On the PK, he was constantly winning battles down low, being physical along the boards, even at 5-on-5, doing the same thing. I think he's one of the top forecheckers on that fourth line. I've said for a while, Connor Dewar is the straw that stirs the drink, but his duo partner, Blake Lizotte, is also right there with him. I think they work so well as a combo. It's also why, Kelsey, I'm so excited for this team to hopefully get healthy soon so those two can be reunited, because when those two are together, they make stuff happen on the fourth line. I'm not sitting here saying it's one of the best fourth lines in the league. Let's pump the brakes on that. But it's at least very serviceable that they can go out there, do their thing in their own zone, and they can hem teams in their own zone at times and start cycling a little bit and, garner some momentum. I really like those two together. And even when Achari was down there as well, he was kind of getting some chemistry with them. And I've been very hard on Noel Achari throughout his Penguins tenure, especially with the lack of offense. But I did feel like after his first few games, he at least was being competent, which I will give him. But I do like Lizotte and Dewar a lot on the fourth line, and especially Lizotte, may not be the biggest player, but he plays his tail off every single shift. But, with that, should we get to trending up and trending down? I think this one's going to be pretty easy for me. Trending up with Sergei Murashov with the shutout that he had. He was great. And honestly, in his first start that he had, I thought he did well enough to win. I was a little nitpicky on the third goal, but he's very much trending up for me. He was sensational in that game on Sunday in Nashville. The future is looking bright for him right now. That one is pretty easy for me, especially because this past week they were on a 3-game losing streak. You obviously break the streak in Nashville against Nashville and Sweden. Felt like that one is pretty easy to do.
Yeah, that's a good pick. My pick is actually not a player. I'm going to go locked on style from the episode that I appeared on last week. And I'm going to say trending up is the penalty kill. I just think this unit has been unbelievable for the Penguins. They've killed off 24 of the last 25 penalties. That's just an insane number, no matter how you slice it. They've been kind of, hemmed in a couple of these games. Even in that second period against Nashville on Sunday, they went on the PK 4 times. They killed off all 4 penalties. There was actually a 5-on-3 that they killed off for about 38 seconds, I think it was. And again, Blake Lizotte, Erik Karlsson, Parker Wotherspoon, outstanding work on that 5-on-3 kill. Erik Karlsson is not getting enough love for his work on the PK this season. He's been outstanding. They've have everything rolling. Everything's clicking for them. I think they're playing a lot more aggressively, just man to man too. They're pressuring teams to the outside. They're not letting them get set up. not letting them get comfortable in the zone. And I think that's paying off for them. And we've talked about this too. And we talked about this earlier this season. I talked to Dan Muse about this when Rickard Rakell was killing penalties earlier on in the season before he was injured. The Penguins have we've seen Brian Rust on the penalty kill in the past. He's playing a little bit more of a prominent role this season. We saw Rickard Rakell on the penalty kill earlier this season. They're kind of experimenting with, using those power play guys. And you can even include Carlson in this, using those power play guys to really push the envelope and force teams to kind of, second guess a little bit, because when you have power play guys out there, and this is what Dan Muse said, they know how the inner workings of a power play, and it kind of helps them with their reads. It kind of helps them, predict what these teams are going to do and where they're going to go with the puck. So I think that strategy is paying dividends for them. And suffice to say, I think the penalty kill has won the Penguins some hockey games recently, especially, in a stretch that they haven't played their best hockey. They've given them a chance in every single game.
100%. And they're really sometimes, well, not even sometimes, a lot of times they're not really just giving up those high danger chances. Like, sure, during that 5-on-3, Nashville had a couple, but, Murashov was especially able to play really strong in that on Sunday. And once they got to a 5-on-4, it was curtains because the Penguins were able to get back to being aggressive. I liked your point on Raquel. I liked him on the PK. Carlson, he's been able to make the right reads as well. It's funny, Kelsey, you look at his penalty kill minutes throughout his career. This year, he's on pace to break because the last couple of years
out of the water.
I think if I remember my article correctly, it was around 70-ish minutes these last couple of years. This year, he's on pace to shatter that, and it's not even going to be close. He was just about halfway there, and we're still not even halfway through the season. So I like that Dan Muse is utilizing him on it a lot more. It opens up his game, quite a bit. We all know his struggles in his own zone at 5-on-5, but on the PK, he's especially been great. So I agree with you. I can't say enough about that unit, especially also the power play. Trending Don, I was kind of going back and forth, but now that it, hit the head on Tuesday, Phil Tomasino, I just think it's kind of run its course with the Penguins at this point, where I just don't really see it getting better. I want to see if another team claims him, but just hasn't been able to do enough in the games that he has played to start the year. So feel like I have to go with him.
Gotcha. Okay, so my trending down is actually going to be Ryan Shea this week. I think he started off the season on a really, really high note, and I think that might have set a bit of an unfair expectation for the rest of what his season was going to look like. So let's just, point out here that the trending down is basically him trending down from where he was. But I do want to say I didn't love his positioning, on Nashville's tying goal on Friday. He kind of just fell out of the play. Left that play wide open when he shouldn't have. He was just a little out of position on that, kind of laxed, kind of just let himself skate back. And that opened up enough space for that play to happen. So didn't like that. I haven't particularly liked his defensive work over the last several games. I thought he was pretty solid on Sunday, as was the rest of the team for the Penguins. But compared to where he was, that high that we saw offensively at the beginning of the season, I'm just not seeing him generate as much. I do think he's had a little bit of a heavy load because Chris Letang's play this season has been really uneven as well. And I think there's a little bit of compensation there. But, I've always kind of believed that Shea was, at best a sixth defenseman, maybe a seventh defenseman, an extra guy. I think he's just coming back down to earth a little bit in this past, 5 or 6 games. Not quite the, Norris Trophy candidate Ryan Shea we saw at the beginning of the season here, Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, the play on that goal definitely wasn't the greatest, but Sid also should not be giving the puck on a silver platter to Philip Forsberg. Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you winning the faceoff. Just don't win it. Not even win it like that. Just don't pass it blindly behind you. And Philip Forsberg was just right there. Like, oh, thank you very much. I'm going to bury this 10 out of 10 times because he's still one of the top goal scorers in the league. Again, totally go with him winning it. And he won it very cleanly. Just made a really poor pass there. I do agree Shea could have also played it a little bit better where he went the wrong way. I still felt like this week he was fine. I don't think he was bad or anything like that. He still played like a top 4 defenseman for most of the season, but I understand why you're going with that, especially after the play that he made at the end of the third period on Friday. So I guess that'll do it for trending up and trending down. But now, Kelsey, guess our final topic real quick before we get out of here. Pretty big stretch coming up. You're ending November against a lot of non-playoff teams. I will say Minnesota is starting to make a little bit of a move in the standings. They started out pretty bad. They've won 6 of their last 8. They're figuring it out. I think by the end of the season, they are probably going to be in the playoffs, but this is still a team that you dominated earlier in the season 4-1. You play a Seattle team the next night who, yeah, they're in a playoff spot. I really don't think Seattle is that good, in my opinion. I think they're kind of meh. Like, they don't really have any big superstars. If you ask me, it's, some good depth forwards, but I still think they're lacking like a true game-breaking superstar on that team. And then, after that, you have Buffalo coming up, and we all know how much they have struggled, of course. And then, you have Philadelphia also to start the month of December. But even, before that, you got Columbus, Toronto, and we all know how much Toronto has struggled recently, though. Willie Nylander did get an overtime winner tonight to end their 5-game winning streak. So the vibes are at least a little bit better there. But once you start December, it is balls to the wall. You're basically playing every other night, if not every night at times. I was talking about this today with Pat, starting on December 4th, Tampa on the 4th, you go to Dallas on the 7th, Anaheim on the 9th, you go to Montreal on the 11th, San Jose on the 13th, who's playing better, Utah on the 14th, Edmonton on the 16th, and then you play on the 18th, and then the 20th and the 21st. It's a lot of circumstances, Kelsey, where you're playing 3 games in 4 nights every other day. That's the condensed schedule, and you're also playing a lot of these teams, bona fide playoff teams / Stanley Cup contenders. So that's why to end November, you really have to bank these points to give yourself more of that cushion. You're doing sound still, excuse me. You're top 3 in the Metro, but you still have to bank some of these points to end the month before December really gets going. And you're playing, again, playoff contender, Stanley Cup contender, a lot of these teams almost on a nightly basis, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's a gauntlet. The schedule's a gauntlet in December. They play a lot of games, as you mentioned. And we kind of saw how they ran out of gas in that last period against the Los Angeles Kings after playing 3 games in 4 days. So, you got to think that they're going to take some rest days in between these games, probably not be practicing as much, probably going to be taking a little bit more time to recoup because, that's kind of the side effect of, these core players for the Penguins are still playing at a very high level. But unfortunately, if you don't have a young lineup or a predominantly not a young lineup, those days catch up to you. Those stretches catch up to you. So, this stretch is really important, as Hunter mentioned. 6 of their next 7 games are against teams currently not in playoff position, and that actually goes into December. So, this is a really important stretch for the Penguins. You're looking at these next 7 games. You probably want to bank, I don't know, I'd say probably about 8 to 10 points here to really, send it home. So they need to bank these points. All these points count at the end of the season. It doesn't matter when you get them, but they got to get them here. And this is a really important stretch. As Hunter mentioned, lots of playoff teams in December, lots of games in December. And guess what? The schedule doesn't get any less condensed after that because January is a gauntlet. February, you got the Olympic break for 3 weeks. March is insane. So, they don't really have a break the rest of the season. This is going to be tough for them. So they really, really, really have to bank these points against some of these teams. And I think we're going to see what the Penguins are made of over this next stretch and if they can win the games that they need to win. So that'll do it for this week's episode. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. As a reminder, if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can do the same on Spotify. You can follow us on socials at pucks_net_pod. Follow both Hunter and I's work on the Hockey News Penguins website. I mentioned I'm going to have a piece about Artie Shulovs. going for, the Olympics this season for Latvia. Hunter, do you have anything that you're kind of excited about working on? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I'm considering doing something on the fourth line in general. Once Connor Dewar reunites, I did something on Blake Lizotte. I'm waiting for Connor Dewar to get back down there once some of these guys get healthy, because I really want to write about this fourth line and how much their partnership, how much fun their partnership is. I was going to probably write about something, with December coming up, how brutal this schedule is. So how, just look at the results, how they're going to need to stay afloat and all that, and kicking some ideas around with stuff like that. And also, I already wrote about, Erik Karlsson, his start to the season. I also wrote about, Karlsson and Wotherspoon earlier this week, how there's a really intriguing defensive stat, Kelsey, that they're top 5 in right now, which is awesome. That pairing has been absolutely sensational. I might have something coming up on Evgeny Malkin as well, because he continues to be a playmaking prowess this year. He has been a playmaking monster for this team. So definitely a couple things on the back burner, but also I'm really excited about a few of the things I've written, since, my birthday this past weekend.
Yes. So, guys, continue to follow us. Follow Hunter's work on the hockey news. And I'll have some stuff for you coming up too. We'll see, if there's any more news out of these next couple weeks. I don't think we're done in the news department in terms of players returning, player movement, injuries, etc. But for now, I'm Kelsey Surmatz for Hunter Hodes. Stay out of trouble in that.